What if I gave you 3 hours head start? You went in the woods and I have to find you. It's basically hide and go seek, but how would this shake out?
Hello, welcome to Guide to the Unknown, and welcome to the first week of Gametober.
Yeah.
I am Kristen.
And I'm her little brother, William.
And we will be your masters of ceremonies.
We want to play a game.
That's right. So we are going to kind of give like a little bit of an overview of what these sorts of death games are sort of about and do a little grab bag for this first week. A little bit of a deviation from past years of our themed months.
Yeah, sort of. I wanted to actually look at this as a genre. I'm not really sure where it got in my head. It got lodged a little bit in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I've got such a fondness for these things. And you know what they are, right? You may not know the name death game as a genre, but I almost think that even that is because there are popular death game things.
Is that what it's actually called, by the way?
Sort of.
Okay.
If you like look up death games, it seems like among like a niche group of people that are interested in these things, that's the commonly accepted term. You've got slasher movies and you've got death games.
Gotcha. Yep.
You know? But like, you know, we've looked in the past, I don't know what episode or anything, but like we looked at slasher as a genre. We looked at found footage as a genre. And as we were getting into Gametober, and part of it is that like I thought it would be fun for Gametober to literally just like be silly and wacky and get into, and literally we're doing a thing we call the Demon Drive on Friday the 13th.
Yep.
At 7 p.m. Eastern on youtube.com/GTTUpod. But like that's going to be us hanging out.
Right.
Doing a few different like mini events during it with a live audience. So join us, please, everybody out there listening or watching. And I wanted to literally play a game with our audience.
Yes.
And so around that, I started to really think about like, let's do death games.
Yeah, it got it percolating.
But then when I started researching death games, it seems like, and I'm sure that there are places that have done this, it seems to me almost like there isn't as much attention or as analytical an eye toward this specific subgenre the way that there is for possession movies.
Yeah.
Or
You're
hauntings.
probably right. I haven't come across it.
Yeah, you never think about it. And yet everybody knows what the Hunger Games are, right? Everybody, especially in the last couple of years, knows about Squid Game,
Right.
which was like the biggest thing on the planet in the last couple of years. And yet it's so funny that they haven't really been classified. You just sort of know them as like people play a game and sort of die.
Yes.
So I went ahead and I did something.
Okay.
If I may.
Would you buy a URL?
No. No, that I did not do. Although
Will loves to buy a URL.
if it were me a couple of years ago, I'm sure I would have. I'm sure I'd own 4 or 5. Yeah, deathgame.com.
Yeah.
No, I realized like I'm a writer. I've written a few things.
Yeah.
All right. Why not? Why can't I be the academic source of looking at these and trying to quantify them?
Of course you can.
And so I Googled around. I looked at various different kinds of death games, and I've come up with a few definitions
Okay, sweet.
and subcategories.
Yeah.
You know I love documentation.
Yes. Love it. Gotta have it.
Gotta have it. So check this out. Death games. From looking at the broader death game subgenre of horror, I wrote, I was sort of surprised to find out it hasn't gotten as much attention as these other things. So I wrote down a list of movies and shows and games and started that I feel fit into the death game subgenre of horror and started trying to bucket them into different categories because we just reviewed Saw X, right on our Patreon. I would call that a death game. People are put into a room and often they have like a contraption on their heads.
Yeah.
And they're given X number of minutes to try to escape it, usually through some sort of bodily dismemberment.
Saw X number of minutes.
Sure. And of course, Jigsaw himself says, I want to play a game. Like this is all couched as if it's going to be some sort of an escape room type game.
Right.
But that game is vastly different from a Hunger Games type scenario.
Yeah.
Where it's like, what is it? Like 24 kids put into a battle arena. And they have to kill each other until but one survives. Those are both death games.
Yeah.
But you can't say they're the same type of story.
Right.
So here's what I here's what I got here to try to make sense of this as a genre. And bear in mind that, this is mutable, changeable.
Of course.
If I'm being an academic here, I'm something of a scientist.
Yeah, okay.
If people point out that, my categorization is wrong, we can always move those barriers. Let's try to, us, Guide to the Unknown.
Sure.
Let's try to make sense of this.
Okay.
So here's what I've written down. Common themes of the death game. Morality, the twisting of societal norms, and punishment of sins.
Yeah.
And I've loosely bucketed different death game stories into the following categories. The Tournament, The Chase, and I like this one, it's the most flourishy, The Machination.
Oh, okay.
Which itself is a pun, but we'll
Yeah.
get there. Let's start with The Tournament. And this is purely my analysis.
Yes.
The Tournament is sort of a rat race. It's player against player.
Would the movie Rat Race fall into this?
What is rat race?
I don't know. It's from like the early 2000s, I think.
Is that...
I think like DJ Qualls is in it.
Okay.
Hold on.
Why?
Rat Race
And only DJ Qualls?
perhaps.
Is it that
Okay.
thing where like Mr. Bean, everyone's like trying to
It
get
is
from...
Mr. Bean.
I knew it.
It is Mr. Bean. It's not DJ Qualls. I'm not sure what I'm...
You mistook
I'm
DJ
thinking of
Qualls.
Road Trip.
Road Trip. Yeah, you are thinking of Road Trip.
Yeah.
Yes, that is a DJ Qualls vehicle.
Quite literally, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's Mr. Bean and John Cleese.
Okay, and they have to get from like A to Z or something.
Yeah, in an ensemble film about easy money, greed, manipulation, and bad driving, a Las Vegas casino tycoon entertains his wealthiest high rollers, a group that will bet on anything, by pitting 6 ordinary people against each other in a wild dash for $2 million jammed in a locker hundreds of miles away.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. That may seem tangential.
I was about to say,
what
really,
you just did by reading the synopsis for Rat Race.
by way of Road Trip.
And yet, if people died periodically, that would perfectly fit
Yeah.
my classification of the tournament,
Yeah.
which I wrote down as player against player.
Well, I will say that the only rule in this race is that there are no rules.
Oh, so people might die. So John
That's
Cleese
what
and
I'm
Mr.
saying,
Bean
maybe.
might murder each other in this?
Maybe. The tycoon and his wealthy friends monitor each racer's every move to keep track of their favorites.
Yes. Okay, that's like...
Whoopi's in it.
Okay.
Hey.
All right.
And Lovitz. Breckenmeyer. Okay, go ahead.
Save it for later. I don't believe anyone's ever seen that. So maybe people do die in it, for
Maybe.
all we know.
Maybe.
So I wrote down that the tournament is the oldest of all death games. Contestants are thrown into an arena, often against their will, and forced to do battle as some form of punishment, some form of control from either like a government or a corporation, or simply for the entertainment of a viewing audience. Usually the contestants are on somewhat even footing, and most often, only one is intended to survive. So some examples of this I wrote down would be Squid Game, The Hunger Games, which are literally, like in the Hunger Games case, it's like 2 people from each district of 12 districts
Right.
are forced to compete in the Hunger Games.
Yes.
Arguably, they all start on even footing, but like some kids from this district are like malnourished, and
Yeah, it'll be
the
like
kids
the
from over there,
soot district versus like the protein district or something. Like, I
soot.
wonder who's doing better.
the soot district, the protein district. Yeah, some of the kids, their culture is to train for the Hunger Games all their lives.
Right.
But it still is like everyone's being sacrificed into this arena, let the chips fall where they may. And everybody sort of starts out and they run to try to get as many weapons as they can.
Yeah.
And then only one may find their way out. And just like Hunger Games, which is very, very similar, all the people in the Hunger Games are like, did you look up anything about it?
About the Hunger Games?
Do you know anything about it?
The Hunger Games?
Oh, Squid Game, sorry.
No.
It's all people that are like horrendously in debt. And the whole thing, there's like money dangling over their head if they only play in these games where any number of them might end up killed.
Yeah.
But by the end of X number of games, only one person should survive. So it's a position of desperation, and like some organizing body with all of this, the logistical work to accomplish this is just putting their thumb on all these people.
Right. Ryan watched it, and I caught teeny bits and pieces of it.
It's so good.
Seems
Squid
very
Game.
upsetting.
That's your main point of resistance?
Yeah.
I suppose that's so not the dominating factor on that show. Squid Game is outstanding. That is like
I'll probably get there in 10 years. when
rightfully
everybody else isn't
popular.
thinking about it.
Yeah. But so I also wrote down for this, for a few people, I'm just going to shout out a few different things. The Running Man, which is a Stephen King story turned into an Arnold Schwarzenegger 80s silly game show with murder in it.
Okay.
Death Race, Battle Royale, which a lot of people pointed to as like maybe Hunger Games stole from Battle Royale.
Right.
And the Gladiator games. Way back in ancient Rome, I wrote this down as maybe like the earliest death game. And I looked into Gladiator games a little bit and found my eyes glazing over because it was very, very complicated. And
I could see that.
had a lot of Latin words.
Yeah.
And I did my best. But maybe we'll get to talking about the gladiator games themselves. But the point is,
fine if we didn't.
The point is, this subgenre is a tournament, person against person.
Yeah. Yep.
So now the next categorization I came up with, the chase. It's a game of cat and mouse. Instead of a bunch of different competitors on arguably even footing, although we agree it's often uneven.
Right.
The whole thing here is that the victim or victims are stalked by a murderous hunter trying to find them and kill them. The hunter or hunters often have weaponry and technology that tips the odds in their own favor.
Yeah.
So this is very much like player versus aggressor.
Right.
Run and hide, try to survive. And so for this, I wrote down Ready or Not, which is a very recent example from the team that did Saw 5 and Saw 6.
Yep.
Which is all about like playing a deadly game of hide and seek against this wealthy family who are inept. And yet they have all the weapons, and this bride character just has to try to hide and scavenge materials to maybe fight back.
Yeah.
Predator, which I think is a weird thing for a death game discussion, but I think is correct, because it's all about this alien hunter that comes to our planet to try to have the best time hunting the most physically interesting humans.
Really?
Yeah.
The best time?
It seems like it's for sport.
Yeah, it's just for fun?
Yeah.
Huh.
So like, and that's
Predator. I
also
really
Arnold
remember.
Schwarzenegger.
Yeah,
I wonder
yeah.
if I can jam Arnold Schwarzenegger into my last one too. Maybe he can be in all of these.
Maybe.
And, you know, if the last one I had the Gladiator games as like the like pinnacle of that genre.
Yeah.
Like it's just person against person in an arena, and in all likelihood only one walks out alive. For the chase, I wrote down the most dangerous game. Do you know anything about the most dangerous game?
Not really.
It's pretty interesting. I had never read the story before, and I just read it for this show. It is about a guy that's a big game hunter himself. And like game, just as a word in this context, is like, I actually, maybe I should have looked up the etymology of using it this way. Like, it's not game like you're playing a game, I don't think. It's game as in...
It's like a noun.
Yeah, you're hunting big game. You're hunting a rhino or something like that. But is it intended to be game as in like fun? Pursuit?
I don't know. Do you ever use that? Not about like an animal?
Playing a game.
I mean, I know that it's man here.
You would
but,
say
like,
that their food is a little gamey.
I think that's still saying like it's animal-y.
It's animal-y.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But so
I think it's for animal, but I do wonder, I wonder if it's because people maybe thought of I guess still do or whatever, but like think about animals for sport, for game.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
But so the most dangerous game is about this guy who hunts animals, and then his yacht like is dashed against some rocks, and he wakes up washed on the shore of a private island that is owned and run by General Zaroff.
Oh,
with a Z.
nice.
It's referenced in Zodiac, because Zodiac perhaps referenced the most dangerous game in his letters.
Yep.
And General Zaroff is like, I know you. Why, you're Hugo Rainsford, the famed hunter. Wow, I'm so happy to have you here. This is an island where I hunt all the time. And they have this awesome conversation where he's like, yeah, I don't hunt normal things. It's like they like beat around the bush for such a long time. It's a story from like 1927 or something like that.
Is the guy getting it? Is he picking up what Zaroff is putting down?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, what? What do you do? So what, do you have like tigers? And he goes, no, not tigers.
Ugh.
I used to hunt tigers, but they started to get too predictable to me. I live for the hunt. I love to hunt. And so I decided to invent my own animal.
Oh my God.
And he goes, what do you mean invent your own animal? And bit by bit, you realize that General Zaroff is way out of his mind. And he lives on, this island is called colloquially Ship Trap Island. It's dangerous to sail near. And so periodically people wash up on General Zaroff's shores. He treats them very well. He gives them all the food they could
Like
want.
the island of Dr. Moreau.
And he even gives them 3 hours head start before he walks out trying to hunt them. He has a room where he displays their heads. And so he's saying to this guy Rainsford, he's like, now that you're here, and I know you're a fellow famous hunter, I'm a bit older than you, but you're pretty good. Why don't you join me for a hunt tomorrow morning? I've got some people down below that are being trained for the hunt.
God.
And Rainsford doesn't, he's like, that's murder. You're insane, and this is murder. And so General Zaroff bit by bit feels insulted and gets a better idea. Wouldn't it be more exciting to hunt another hunter? And so now Rainsford is going to be the prey.
Yeah.
It's very fun, and it's almost like this weird morality
Sounds good.
play of like a hunter who finds himself turned into the prey.
Yeah, and like, how does it feel?
Does he learn a lesson through this? But it's a death game.
Yeah.
It's like a one-on-one, but it does fit into what I'm calling the chase. This cat and mouse, uneven fighting.
Right.
And then the last one that I'm very proud of the title of. It's very pretentious.
Machinations.
The Machination. and the meaning of it is twofold. It's player against mysterious mastermind. Unwitting participants find themselves in a trap, almost like surprised to realize, oh my God, I guess I'm in a game now.
Yeah.
Often orchestrated by a secretive mastermind. So check this out. Here's what I put into the machination, which I also call the hamster ball.
Okay.
Saw. Right? You just wake up in a room.
Yep.
Oh, I've got a trap on my head. What's going on? The trap may be my immediate problem.
Right.
But why am I here? What's going on?
Somebody did this to
Yes.
me. Yeah.
And so that's the word play for
Yeah.
machination. One, there's a mysterious overlord
Yeah.
who's schemed machination. And two, there's a lot of machinery.
William,
I was very proud of that. I think that's pretty good.
you're doing beautifully.
If I'm
I feel
trying-
like you should write this up and put it somewhere.
I agree. If I'm
Yeah.
trying to be like an academic and look at this, I feel like machination is actually the kind of wordplay that could get me into like Collier's magazine.
I think probably.
What's another publication that hasn't been around for decades?
I don't know. Maybe you could win the. No, this happens. I would say you could win the Hasty Pudding Award from Harvard or whatever.
The Silly Little Puddin' Man.
Do you know what I'm talking
Award.
about?
Yeah.
They give somebody that every year, I think.
So I put Saw in here, Escape Room. This is a little silly, and again, this is where it's like there's wishy-washiness here a little bit. Truth or Dare. Remember that Blumhouse movie?
I never saw it, but I do.
Kids
Yeah.
play a game of Truth or Dare, and then it turns out there's a demon behind it all.
Right.
I would argue that is unwittingly putting yourself into a hamster ball, putting yourself
get
in
that.
a trap, and you sort of have to riddle out.
Yeah, you don't know that you're playing a game with the demon. or
Exactly,
whatever,
until
but
it's too
they
late.
know they're playing it with you.
So now what?
Yeah.
Right?
My beloved Lucy Hale is in that, I think. Right?
Yes, that's correct. All right. The last
Pretty
two, I
Little
think.
Liars.
The last two, I think, are accurate, but are going to be surprising that I put in here. Clue.
No, I was thinking that while you were talking about it.
People show up to a dinner party, and this is like classy stuff. People show up to a fancy dinner party only to find out that they have all been brought here for a reason.
Yeah.
The puzzle box, the hamster ball, is the house.
Right.
And then by that logic, and then there were none.
Well, and also, may I say real quick, you're right. The machine that they're in is the house. The machination is coming from
Mr.
Body. Yeah.
And then there were none. Who is the person who's brought us here to judge all of our sins? And it's being communicated through a nursery rhyme.
Yeah.
All of that stuff, like, that's this death game.
Yeah, totally.
You know, it's a larger than life situation. You don't know who's responsible. It's almost like got a whodunit angle.
Yeah.
So those are the three. The tournament, which is a rat race. It's player against player until only one is left standing. Again, generally for all these.
Yeah.
The chase, cat and mouse. We are up against somebody who outnumbers us, out weaponry. You know, they've got the tools to chase us. We've got nothing. And the machination.
Yeah.
Where am I? What's going on? Who's responsible?
I think this is brilliant.
Those are the three.
I think this is wonderful, Will.
And I do think that they could almost slide into each other, right? Like, there are 10 Saw movies at this point. Maybe individual traps might fall into different categories.
Sure.
I don't know. But the overall picture of it is a machination.
Yeah, totally. That's awesome.
So there are other death game things that exist. And the interesting thing is I found a bunch of channels on YouTube. There's one that I got like addicted to watching. I'm very addicted to YouTube. It's called How to Beat. And the person who runs How to Beat literally goes like, it'll say like how to beat the Hunger Games.
Yeah.
And it'll be like, this is the person, this is Katniss, here's the situation that she's in, here's the first thing that she ran up against, and here's what she did. What she should have done was this other thing.
Yeah.
Like he almost
cool.
hindsight is 2020s it.
Yeah.
And goes like, if she wanted to be smarter and conserve energy and resources, she should have actually let all the other people walk ahead and risk their own safety.
Yeah, it's stuff that like they couldn't have known, but as an outside observer who has now seen the totality of the story, you can see.
But it's very, very entertaining. And because of that channel, because of How to Beat, I've now found all these other death game stories that I didn't even know existed.
Oh, nice.
This appears to be a relatively popular genre in Japan. I've found out about things called like Alice in Borderland.
Yes.
You've heard of that?
I have, because it's on Netflix. And I think it just got renewed for another season or something.
Okay, yeah. It's like everybody sort of like wakes up in a, I don't know if it's literally like Alice in Wonderland where it's you're transported somewhere.
I don't know. It was one of those things where, what is this called? Confirmation bias. Like ever since we decided to do this as a topic, I just keep seeing essentially death game things. I think also there were a lot of death game articles and listicles because of Saw X coming out last week.
Yeah. I'm sure that's also probably partly why I'm interested.
Yeah, totally. But I would say in the last couple of weeks, I just keep seeing these things. And I think they're things that I might not normally pay attention to, like Alice in Borderlands. I just haven't seen or heard of that before, so I just skim by it.
Yeah.
But something about like the subheader said something about it being gamey, so I checked it out.
Totally. Another one called As the Gods Will, which goes ahead and just gets real wacky. Like one of the things that almost all the death games I talk to you about have in common is that they are relatively based in reality. You know, like Jigsaw is ridiculous, but somebody could put a trap on your head.
You're right,
yeah, exactly. This movie, As the Gods Will, is like students are visited by basically like a Matryoshka doll that is talking to them. And like yelling at them and berating them. And then like a giant robot cat will eat them if it sees them.
Oh boy.
Unless they dress up like mice. Like it takes the game aspect and dials it up where it doesn't even have to be realistic.
Yeah.
But still all the people are like, what should we do?
Right.
What's the smartest move next?
Yeah.
But it doesn't have any foot in reality. And I actually kind of enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So I want to take a look at a handful.
Sure.
Not many. Actual death game stories just to talk them out, especially if they fit sort of like my pillar structure. So I mentioned gladiator games, and I'll make it super duper brief. But they ran, depending on your source, because I found a lot of conflicting information about the gladiator games.
Yeah.
One of them said that they ran from about 100 BC to about 400 AD, which is approximately like 500, 600 years. And it's got an incredibly complicated backstory, but here's the weirdest part of it. What would you say you know about the gladiators?
Nothing. I know about the commercial starring Britney Spears, Pink, and Beyonce, and I know the Russell Crowe movie.
What's the commercial? Go ahead.
Oh, it was a Pepsi commercial where they enter the arena and they're singing "We Will Rock You" weirdly. And like, drinking Pepsi to fuel up for their warrior game or whatever.
What about it is gladiatorial?
They're entering an arena and they're dressed like gladiators.
They don't fight or do anything. They just walk in and drink Pepsi?
I don't know.
Sounds flimsy.
I don't know. No, I bet something else happens. There might be like a CGI lion or something, maybe.
Okay.
I don't really think so, though.
All right. Well, you sort of got something there because it seems like it seems like the gladiator games, there's this whole concept of bread in circuses in ancient Rome. People still use it today, this phrase, which is like all the people really need is technically enough food to get by and enough distractions so they don't realize how kind of shitty life is.
Yeah.
So in ancient Rome, they had all of these, it was called like the ludi. They had basically like festivals and parties and games happening constantly, it seems. And so the gladiator games were like a bunch of different kinds of games. One of them would be man against beast, which still sort of happens today in bullfighting, if you think about it.
So was a lion involved in that?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Not 100% of the time. But the thing that I would have said about gladiators is that it is kind of like a battle royale kind of thing. Like two people walk in, they get to pick some form of weaponry, fight to the death. Only one person comes out. The weird thing is that evidently it was so sporting. Some people were forced into it, like slaves would be forced into it, or prisoners would be like publicly executed as a form of entertainment.
Right.
But they were also so popular that there was money to be made, either from betting or just to get as much spectacle as possible. So there were literally like athletes who would train and then volunteer to be in gladiator games to make money. And there would be like agents.
Yeah, they're like sports people.
Yeah, it was like UFC fighting or something like that. And because of that, not every single gladiator game ended with death, because you want your guy to be able to play in multiple games.
Yeah, because they could have fans and stuff.
There would just be some form of elimination.
Right.
Weirdly, it seems like the gladiator games, and it's highly disputed, but it seems like they almost started as part of a funeral process. Like, to honor the person who died, these two people will now fight.
Yeah.
Which is weird. But that's sort of like the nascent beginning. And the death of it is Christianity. Christianity starts to sweep. They view all the gladiator stuff as pagan and worshiping old gods and human sacrifice stuff. And so bit by bit, the gladiator games are gradually snuffed out.
I have an update on the gladiator game that I brought up.
Thank God.
The Pepsi commercial. Number one, I forgot that Enrique Iglesias is there too as some sort of like emperor looking down over them. What happens, by the way, it's 3 minutes long because it was a Super Bowl commercial. So there was like an extended version.
Right.
It's basically Pink, Britney Spears, and Beyonce coming out and just like hyping up this crowd, it seems like. And Enrique Iglesias seems very annoyed by this. Like he's not liking that the crowd is liking them. And there's some Pepsi for them so they can drink that and like keep up their energy or whatever. And then somehow it looks like Enrique Iglesias is basically ejected from his like king seat and he lands in the arena, and then a lion comes out. So it's implied that the lion is going to eat Enrique Iglesias.
Okay, and Britney Spears, Beyonce, and Christina Aguilera, Pink are going to escape, reversing their roles.
Right.
They were forced to battle a lion for people's entertainment, but the Pepsi,
I guess,
emboldened them to launch Enrique Iglesias into a lion's mouth.
They must have had an ally somewhere up there with Enrique Iglesias because they were in the arena, and yet he seemed to have just been thrown from his
Maybe
chair.
We can reboot this commercial into a series to explore who the apprentice was.
I would love to do that.
Yes.
Maybe it's his, oh God, who's this famous tennis player girlfriend? Anna something. It's fine.
Who's Rico Suave?
I think that's just a character from an 80s song. It'd be like, Rico.
Yes.
Suave.
Okay.
Maybe the guy singing it is named Rico Suave.
I bet that's what was going on.
Yeah.
So let me just confirm, while you were watching that commercial, how much of what I was saying did you hear?
I heard it. No, don't give me
If I assigned a test to you right now and the stakes were life or death, there is a movie that's like this. I think it's called Exam. Would you survive?
No.
You don't know what I was just saying?
No.
Okay.
I kind of do.
Okay. All right. That explains why I felt so alone for a few minutes there.
You see, William, you are stuck in my machination.
Yes. I guess. All right. Let's move on to another type. This was actually suggested by one of our listeners, Maggie. We record live most Wednesdays, 7 p.m. Eastern. And Maggie suggested looking at Russian roulette.
Right.
Which I think fits the death game thing, but I don't know if it fits any of my categories.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So Russian roulette, if you didn't know, is a quote-unquote game where a revolver, a gun, has some combination of live and empty chambers, like live bullets and empty chambers.
Right.
And the players take turns shooting at someone else or more often themselves. So you literally put like one bullet in the chamber, spin the chamber on this revolver, opposite of a reviver.
Yeah.
And it makes this satisfying fidget spinner whirring sound.
I know. I always like it when they do that.
I know. It's just very fancy looking.
Yeah.
And then you fire it, and the theory is you have a 1 in 6 chance of it being a real bullet when you pull the trigger. So I looked into it a little bit because the topic almost makes me sick to my stomach.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. The term itself was coined by a writer, George Surdez, in a short story for Collier's Magazine, which was titled Russian Roulette. So this seems to be the earliest time that anybody has documentation of the name of the game, Russian Roulette.
Yeah.
Although it has been the game, like the odds of a bullet being in the chamber might go back to an 1840 story called The Fatalist. But I want to look at this story, Russian Roulette, because it seems like this one was kicked off a chain of events.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story. I found it online. I read the story. And here's what's going on. It's presented as a letter written by a soldier named Hugo Feldheim, who is asking for advice. A superior of his, Sergeant Bukowski, has died, and he needs advice on how to break the news of the death. Bukowski was a gambler who bet on just about everything, but he also knew about a way old game. Quote, this is from the story. He told me all about it. When he was in the Russian army around 1917 and things were cracking up, their officers felt that they were not only losing prestige, money, family, and country, but were also dishonored before their colleagues of the Allied armies. Some officers would suddenly pull out his revolver anywhere, at the table, in a cafe, at a gathering of friends, remove a cartridge, remove one bullet, spin the cylinder, snap it back into place, put it to his head, and pull the trigger. There were 5 chances to 1 that the hammer would set off a live cartridge and blow his brains all over the place. Sometimes it happened, sometimes not. When it did, there was nothing more that could be said or done. When it didn't, the fellow waited another day.
Boy.
It's intense.
Yeah.
And remember, this is a 1927 story, I think. Something like that. It feels very early to be saying,
Yikes.
blow brains out.
I know.
It's very intense language.
Yeah, that people were still people and might have talked like that.
Exactly. And so Bukowski, remember, is telling this story to this other officer, Feldheim.
Yeah.
And he says, you'll never understand the thrill of it. He says, as he removes a bullet, spins the chamber, and click, nothing happens.
Adrenaline junkie, eh?
I guess so. Through the winter, Bukowski does this periodically, it seems. Every so often when things seem desperate, he pulls a gun out, removes one bullet, spins the chamber, puts it to his head, and click, it never goes off. So,
is there just something wrong with his gun?
One night, Hugo Feldheim says something about how lucky this guy Bukowski has been that the gun has never shot. I think he just came into some money. Somebody died, and so he's like, good thing that you never shot. And so Bukowski almost takes it like a dare.
Yeah.
Or a challenge. It was the wrong thing to say to Bukowski. So lucky. So Bukowski puts some money on the table, removes 5 bullets from the gun, leaving only one in place, snaps it shut, spins the cylinder, and then they have a debate. And I love this debate. Feldheim says, don't fire that gun. Even though there's only one bullet in the pistol, this is the time that it's going to shoot. And I know for a fact. And Bukowski essentially is like, oh, really? Prove it. Why? So Feldheim says, I always just figured that when you removed the one bullet and you spun the chamber, you spun it the same way every single time. And maybe even subconsciously, you let it rest, stopped it with your thumb or snapped it into place with the empty chamber pointed up. And so it was never had a live bullet in it because you subconsciously spun it the same every single time. And Bukowski says, no, it's completely random. It's almost like he's trying to reassure himself of his worldview. No, it's always been random. I've always been brave. It's always been a thrill, whatever. And he goes, besides this time, even if I did reflexively stop it, because remember, he left the one this time. So Feldheim's point is if you spin it the same way, and I think you did, you're going to stop it where it's the one bullet. So Burkowski goes, no. The weight will be different because there's different amount of bullets in it. And Feldheim goes, I don't think the weight is enough to make a difference. Mm-hmm. And so Burkowski doubles his money, puts it on the table, makes the bet even higher, pulls the gun, puts it to his head, and
Ew.
click. He's fine.
Ah.
He's fine. But that night, Burkowski comes to Feldheim and admits something. While they were talking and having their debate, he sort of anxiously and nervously spun the chamber another couple of clicks. Hoping to maybe make it random, but maybe almost caving and being like spinning it away from the bullet.
Yeah.
If Feldheim was correct.
Yeah.
And so he gives Feldheim all his money back and starts, and quote unquote, it says Burkowski was ashamed. He mumbled a lot about having been a gentleman. I told him not to be crazy, to forget it. And he was. And he was after me for 2 hours trying to get me to do the bet all over again. I refused. They go their separate ways, but later that night, Feldheim is alone in his bunk when he hears bang. And he assumes that Burkowski played the game alone, maybe trying to prove something to himself. But the coda to the story is he went into the room, found Burkowski, examined the weapon. There were 5 bullets in all the chambers. Every chamber was loaded.
Oh.
And so it's
yeah.
Yeah. And the story ends with him saying, I hope you can tell me how to arrange this story so it may satisfy the authorities. It's not quite clear to me whether it would be right to reveal that he had shot himself for cheating. On the other hand, have I the right to falsify an official report? Respectfully yours, Hugo Feldheim, Sergeant, 3rd Foreign Infantry. And it's an interesting story.
Yeah.
It's interesting that, like, it's both forms of Russian roulette in the origin.
Yeah.
1 bullet or only 1 empty chamber.
Right.
And that it ends not even with the premise of Russian roulette, but almost like, I don't know, any number of comments on the type of person who would play Russian roulette, I suppose.
Right. So is it written all like that? Like it's a letter written to whoever? Yeah.
It's a recollection from the perspective of Hugo Feldheim asking somebody to help him explain the story properly.
Cool.
But the weird thing is that Wikipedia then goes on and they have a list of notable examples of people playing or dying from Russian roulette. And it's not as short as you hope it would be. A standout for me that was really surprising, it must have been very challenging. Alan Cumming went on to one of those shows that's like, where do you come from? Go back in your family's history and learn about your past. When he found out that his grandfather, Tommy Darling, was explained as having
That's amazing.
an amazing name, Alan Cumming and Tommy Darling.
What are the chances?
Incredibly odd.
What a family.
I know. He was always explained as having died while cleaning a gun. He died playing Russian roulette.
Oh, wow.
There are a lot of people. And I specifically sort of looked, and it's like after the story was published, I mean, that seems to be, maybe that's just when the attention started on this game. I don't know. But like, it was the starting point of people starting to play this game.
Yeah. Maybe it kind of created a boom.
Maybe. And
so
it obviously, like, famously has appeared in things like Deer Hunter with Christopher Walken, which I don't think I can watch. It's been parodied in a million things. It was on, not Wet Hot American Summer.
I don't know anything
It's Always
about it.
Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay.
They play Russian roulette and they're all sweating and it looks so desperate and dirty and gross.
You and I looked at pictures of it after the show last week and it did look gross.
Yeah, it's just a nightmare. But so Russian roulette, I think it technically fits into the death game genre.
Yeah.
It's almost as small as like the end of Jigsaw specifically, where it's like, this game is simple, the best ones are.
Right.
It's like 1 gun, 2 people, figure it out. It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know, it's so desperate and small.
Yeah.
But I don't know where it would fit in my qualification or if it needs to stand alone.
Right.
Does the cheese stand alone?
I think the cheese might.
Or is it technically part of the tournament idea? It's person against person.
Yeah, I guess it is.
I don't know. You can fudge it, I'm sure, but
I guess it is.
it's very strange and very morbid, obviously. It's probably one of the darkest things we've talked about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I'll conclude my portion here by just telling you the last of the stuff about the most dangerous game that I really enjoyed.
Okay, great. So wait, is this the portion about everything all together? Like, are you going through all of your sections? or what?
Not really, right? Because
Okay.
I didn't really know where Russian roulette would fit, but it
Gotcha.
seemed like I wanted to look at some of the oldest death game stuff. That's why the Gladiator was there, because I tried to figure out like what's the earliest form of this.
Yeah.
And it's a real life example, not a pop culture one, that there were these tournaments where people died for sport.
Yeah.
You know? And then Russian roulette, when Maggie brought it up last week, I was like, yeah, that fits as well, but it's I guess oddly it is part of real life. I was actually I was excited at first to find out that it came from a short story. So I was like, I love that things come back to fiction and storytelling and people being clever and creative in entertaining people. But then did it creep into real life?
Right.
And then The Most Dangerous Game I thought of as just like another like almost like pinnacle of classic literature or something like that has informed this genre for decades since.
Yeah.
But I don't know that they really did. I don't think I have nothing fell into. Oh no, I do have Cat and Mouse. Most Dangerous Game I'll tell you about. I think the only one I didn't tell you about might be The Machination.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, that you were going category by category, kind of.
Yeah, not quite.
Not as such.
The categories thing is almost like when I realized like I don't think anyone's really looked at this.
Yeah, yeah.
So where I left off telling you about it before, General Zaroff was like, I'm going to hunt you,
Right.
other hunter, Rainsford. By the way, this was also in Collier's magazine.
Oh, I've never heard of Collier's before tonight.
Yeah, I was actually like, what is this publication where like
Yeah.
all these things are coming from? This is
Right.
very weird. But so Rainsford tries to outwit and like climb a tree and leave false trails and stuff like that. But then
I
he's
would bury myself in a hole.
and just die and cover it up.
I'd find some way. I'd like, I don't know, make some sort of giant straw out of.
Oh, to
leaves.
breathe.
Yes,
Okay. I was like, to suck mud.
That's how I dig the hole.
You sucking mud out there?
Suck my.
Patooey.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea.
Thank you.
Maybe we could play this. Right?
Yeah, that'd be
You
great.
can play a non-death version of these death games. Like it would be
Well,
what if I gave you 3 hours head start, you went in the woods and I have to find you? It's basically hide and go seek, but how would this shake out? Because I ain't no hunter and you ain't no
hider. No, I'd need to be much more physically adept. I would want to just like scale a tree.
It would probably be more interesting with us in our current forms.
That's
It's like how useless we both are.
I'd just be like hiding behind a log or something.
Yeah.
What else would I do?
And I would check behind like some other logs and be like, this is impossible.
Yeah.
Give up. I don't know.
Or I'd bury myself in just leaves, and then I'd turn and I'd see like a little buggy next to me and be like, and give myself away.
Give yourself away.
Yeah.
Or pull a PETA from the Hunger Games and try to paint your face like a cake.
That is so funny.
So stupid.
I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
So dopey.
I know.
So actually, what Rainsford does when he's being hunted, he climbs up this tree and just kind of hopes.
That's what I wish I could do.
And then he hears General Zaroff coming, and he looks down, and General Zaroff is standing at the base of the tree.
Oh, God.
And starts to just look up, and it's totally clear that he's toast. He's been found. He's going to be killed right now.
Right.
But General Zaroff just sort of starts chuckling to himself and turns around and walks away.
Oh.
It's like, he's toying with me.
Yeah, yeah.
He found me so easily. He's giving me a shot at doing better. The whole thing is also
I
like
should have
he's
buried
like,
himself
you've
and
got
used a leaf straw.
yeah, leaf straw. He's got 3 days. If he survives 3 days, he can escape. Nobody ever has before.
Yeah, yeah.
Meanwhile, so anyway, the hunting continues, and Rainsford actually does a decent job. He uses a type of trap that sort of injures Zaroff. He like injures Zaroff's shoulder by using a melee man catcher.
Wow.
He also
What
rigs
they used to call me.
the melee man catcher.
Yeah.
He also rigged a knife on a spring that ends up getting General Zaroff's like little toady assistant man, but not Zaroff himself. And it all culminates with like they're face to face basically, and Rainsford just in a last mad dash runs and jumps off this cliff by the water. And so General Zaroff is like, oh, well, I guess the hunt is over.
Yeah.
That's disappointing. And he goes home and he makes himself dinner and he thinks about how hard it's going to be to replace his toady assistant who died. And he's more than anything, he's a little disappointed that his fellow hunter
Yeah.
gave up on the fight. And he goes to bed, and Rainsford jumps out and goes, like, have at you, Zaroff. I'm still your quarry. And And Zaroff looks at him.
This sounds awesome.
It is pretty awesome. It's also in the public domain, which is interesting. 1920. General Zaroff ends up looking at him and realizing, like, yeah, the game is still on, huh?
Yeah.
And his reaction to, like, Murder Man snuck into my bedroom at night is splendid. One of us will furnish a repast for the hounds. Meaning one of us will be food for my dogs. The other will sleep on this very excellent bed. On guard, Ransford. And the last line of the story is, he had never slept in a better bed, Rainsford decided.
Nice.
So he killed General Zaroff.
Yeah.
And I guess slept in the bed for sure.
And I guess fed him to his dogs.
I guess. So I
hope not.
Did he go as crazy as the guy? Will this continue? You know? But that's the most dangerous game, which I think was very influential. And so those are at least 3 death games.
Yeah.
3 classic old death games. A mix of real life stuff and fiction stuff. It's very strange.
Yeah. That's awesome.
It's fun.
Sweet. Well, we've got a game afoot ourselves.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, over on patreon.com/GTTUpod. That's where you can go if you'd like to help support the show and get a bunch of really cool bonus stuff in return. For example, we actually have a whole second weekly podcast called the Netherworld Dispatch that comes out every single Monday. And if you join us at our demon level, then you get all of those episodes. And then we have other tiers that you can check out where you can get episodes either monthly or bi-weekly. You can just see what kind of fits you.
Yep. It also gets you access to our Discord.
Yep.
So you can chat with other like-minded folks about all this freaky deaky stuff that we enjoy so much.
It's slamming. The Discord is so nice. People are talking every day.
Yeah.
And it's very cool.
The most recent episode of the Netherworld Dispatch, by the way, is, I mentioned it before, our review of Saw X. We saw Saw X.
That's right.
And we had a lot to say. Our entire conversation is almost 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And Saw is always one of those franchises that, like, I don't know, I stare at it.
Gets those gears turning, just like those Twisted Pictures gears at the beginning.
You're right. Yeah. Yes, it's true, though. And so, yeah, go check that out. It's episode 129, meaning that there's, so many shows.
Yeah. And
literally the second you sign up, you unlock all of them and whatever fits your tier going forward. So check it out. Patreon.com/GTTUpod. We've also got a new review this week. It's a shorty. It's a sweetie. It's from Listening Lola, who says, love. It's always fun, and I love the energy they bring. 5 stars.
Thank you, Listening Lola. That's so nice.
And since it was so short and sweet, I'll just remind you all, put it on your calendar, and you can see our schedule. We've got everything up on our social media now. The Demon Drive, our live evening hangout on Friday the 13th, 7 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/GTTUpod. Follow at GTTUpod on all social media. We're going to hang out. We're going to play some games together. We're going to play some games against each other. We'll play games with you and against the two of us.
Right. And all you need is your phone to play these games.
It's true.
So you're all good.
And we're going to watch Night of the Living Dead, which I still haven't checked if we're going to get flagged for, but I'll check it.
Okay.
But it's going to be like, I feel like it's going to be a fun evening. We're going to play some clips from our Patreon that have never been out of the vault before. It'll be a good time with us. I feel like it's almost going to be like a pizza party night.
Yeah, definitely.
Like we'll rent a movie, we'll play some games.
Maybe we'll get some pizza. It'll be a damn good time. So definitely
come hang out with us for the 2023 Demon Drive, Friday the 13th, 7 p.m. Eastern, youtube.com/GTTUpod.
Oh, yeah. And also, follow us online at GTTUpod because we have up the Gametober schedule just in case you want to know what movies we're going to be watching this month so you can watch along with us. You can find them over there.
That's right.
And you'll be all set.
Actually, along those lines, maybe I'll just go ahead and say them real quick. So we're going to take a look next week at The Hunger Games. The week after that is going to be Clue. And we're going to conclude Gametober with Escape Room, which is like the gamiest modern game, death game, murder game.
Have you seen that game?
Hallie and I saw Escape Room 1 in theaters and came away from it being like, that was pretty good.
Oh, nice.
And also I'm a big fan of escape rooms. And it's also, I just kind of can't wait to talk about escape rooms.
Yeah.
You know?
Of course.
Have you seen it?
No.
Okay, I'll be curious to get your thoughts. And I have not seen Escape Room 2. I do not know. But so that's the calendar. Hunger Games, Clue, and Escape Room.
Yep.
And on Patreon, we're going to be doing some, obviously we did Saw X. We're going to play some Fortnite on the next episode.
Yep.
Some Fall Guys. Say goodbye to Friday the 13th, the game.
Yeah.
And
It's a
plenty
cool
other.
game.
The Netherworld Dispatch gets pretty shenanigan heavy.
Yeah.
We're going to look at some garbage next week, I think.
Ooh,
some
yeah.
real trash.
Yep.
So look forward to that. But so that's Gametober this month.
Yeah.
Happy to have you.
Totally.
All right.
So I'm going to take us on home by telling you all about the movie Battle Royale.
Yes.
Which is generously kind of called inspiration for The Hunger Games, or The Hunger Games is kind of a ripoff of it, basically.
What do you think?
I didn't look into it terribly far, I got to tell you.
Like
but
the comparisons?
Yeah, but I mean, there are certainly things in Battle Royale that like are exactly what happened in The Hunger Games.
Yeah.
So it could be a coincidence. It could not. I really don't know. But so I haven't seen this movie. I watched some clips and trailers and stuff like that. It doesn't look like it's for me.
No, I think it would gross you out.
Yeah, it just looks like really gross and seems like a bummer. Like I mean, I've said this before, but just very quick recap if somebody doesn't know or something. Doesn't really matter. But I don't really like gore. I like all these horror movies and everything, but if it's too gross, I'm just like squinting the whole time. Like I've seen obviously all the Saw movies and I just like don't look at the gross parts.
It's so funny because that stuff doesn't really bother me. The stuff that gets to me is like the human desperation or the insurmountable odds. How about that?
Yeah.
Any one of these things where it's like, you're not getting off this island.
It's that as well for me. I wouldn't watch something like that without the gore.
Yeah.
So for them to be both together just is very unpleasant for little Chrissy. So I haven't seen it, but I understand that it's like super beloved. So Will suggested that I look into it without having to actually watch it, and then we'll have covered it. So it's adapted from a book of the same name, and the movie came out in the year 2000. And here is the very basic plot. There are obviously things about it that I didn't include that aren't as gamey.
Okay.
That are about kind of like the relationships between each other.
Yeah.
And things like that. I just wanted to kind of cover the game stuff. So basically, the Japanese government passes something called the BR Act. So the Battle Royale Act.
That's pretty on the nose.
I mean, I guess you may as well just call it what it is.
I guess, yeah. I mean, the Hunger Games are just called the Hunger Games. So,
Right.
yeah, whatever.
Right. That aims to lower the number of delinquents in the country by having them face off to the death over the course of 3 days, and only one survivor is allowed to make it out alive. The rules of this game.
Yes.
Kill each other. Guaranteed, ? Only one person will make it out alive, and the game masters have created a failsafe using these electric collars that they have them have.
Right.
So, given this, I guess that this falls into the tournament
Yeah,
sort of.
I think it's handily the tournament style. Bunch of people dropped into an arena.
Yep.
They can try to get other supplies, whatever. Try to manipulate each other emotionally to garner sympathy and stuff.
From what I understand, there's quite a bit of that in Battle Royale.
Yes, I believe so. But really, it's just kill or be killed.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you seen Battle Royale?
A million years ago.
Yeah,
And I
yeah, I
remember
thought you had.
really liking it. But I do also remember there being a few things. I don't know if you've got this in
Go
there.
ahead.
Do you have a line that somebody says?
No, I don't have any lines.
You don't have any lines? All right, I'm gonna maybe misremember this, but it's really disturbing. It's like really disturbing.
Do I want to hear it?
You may not.
Let's skip it.
Okay, we'll skip it.
Okay.
Maybe I'll say it to you the last thing I say on the show.
No, don't.
I'll say it post credits on this week's episode.
Okay, yeah,
All right?
yeah,
Yeah.
there you go. All right, so it's a group of bad middle schoolers. They're like 15 years old, including the main character Shuya, and they think that they're going on a field trip, but instead they are gassed and brought to this island inhabited by soldiers and told that it's Battle Royale time. Everyone is fitted with explosive collars that will go off if the students are uncooperative or if they enter certain danger zones. And then the kids are given rations, a map. They each get a random weapon, and off we go.
Random weapon. So you essentially, like a form of roulette, like you get something good,
Yeah.
you get something bad.
Totally. Yeah, they just give them whatever, just kind of in a line, giving
Yeah.
out whatever they have. And the head boss of this whole thing, at least on the island, is a teacher named Kitano.
Okay.
So he was a former teacher at the school who left, and then he like came back basically to do this game, was my understanding. There's a transfer student named Kawada who shows mercy on some people, and it's later revealed that he is the winner of a previous battle royale where he and his girlfriend were the final two standing, and she sacrificed herself to save him. So he volunteered himself for this game with the intention of winning and killing whoever's in charge of this entire thing to avenge her death.
This is the other big trope about death games. Somebody who wins despite the rules or something, like 2 people win this time, even though only one's supposed to.
Right.
And then they go after the game makers.
Yes.
But paradoxically, the viewer just wants to see the games.
Right. Yeah, that's probably
We don't want to see the games dismantled. We want to see the games.
Although, so I really haven't consumed many death game things at all, I would say. So I'm thinking of Hunger Games a lot, partially because I see the parallels between that and Battle Royale. I do like seeing the trying to figure out what to do about the bad guys behind the games.
It depends. I remember the Hunger
sure it
Games
depends.
by the 3rd book getting into like it's just a war story.
Yes, that I don't
It's like there's
enjoy.
no big silly arena. And
No, the first and second. But yeah, by that time, it's like a war. What is it, Pan Am? It's like a war-torn country by that point.
And
It
I
becomes
don't want
something
that.
I don't want that either. But
I want to see the silly games.
I want to
If
see
you
the
can
silly
drag
games.
the masterminds into the silly games, good.
I want to see the silly game, but I also like seeing like the winner kind of get out, and now they're like part of the system and trying to like mess it up from the inside. All that stuff in the Hunger Games is kind of fun. Like we're like Katniss and Peter are all dressed up and they're going to these things, but like they're really trying to figure out how to take down like President Snow or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right about that. There's just really only one.
I'm also speaking very specifically. You know what I mean? Like I like that in Hunger Games. I can't really think of this kind of thing in another thing.
I would argue that Jurassic Park sort of does that, where it's like it's kind of fun to see dinosaurs in a theme park.
Yeah.
And then it's like, this dinosaur is with soldiers now. You're like, I don't care about this.
Yeah, Jurassic Park is wild.
I liked the theme park.
Totally.
You destroyed the theme park.
Yes, I don't want to see
Which is what
this
I'm here
stuff.
for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like there's only one trajectory for these stories sometimes. It's all play the fun, silly game.
Yeah.
Transcend the silly game.
Yeah.
Now there are no games, and I don't want it
Right, and like,
anymore.
why are we here?
Why are we
anymore
here?
then?
Yeah,
Because then
exactly.
it's just fighting the president,
Yeah,
or whoever,
yeah,
the boss, the
yes.
whatever, and it's like, well, I don't want to see
I don't
that.
really care about that, yeah.
It's like a completely different genre at that point.
Yes.
So like, that's not what I signed up for. So this part that I just read about his girlfriend sacrificing himself when they're the final two, that in particular really reminded me of the Hunger Games, because that's what happens at, spoiler alert, the end of the first one. Like, well, kind of. I guess they're gonna do a
They're
joint.
both about to eat poison berries.
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's still like, I think it starts out as PETA is going to do it himself or something. Honestly, I'm
remember.
forgetting this.
Don't remember.
I didn't think about it this deeply until I'm saying it out loud. But I think it was that one of them was going to just take the berries themselves so that the other one could win. And then I think that one was like, no, let's do it together.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Don't quote me. But I don't know. It just pinged something in my brain, that part in particular. So they're doing this whole thing. All the kids are killing each other and everything. Apparently they kind of held off at first. Like nobody really wanted to be the first one to go. And then when it became apparent that like there's no getting out of this is what's happening, then it like really kicks everything off. There are some kids who are able to hack into the computer system that controls their collars and controls like a speaker system and I guess probably walkie-talkies between the soldiers and stuff like that. And it causes total chaos, which leads Kitano, that boss guy, to reboot the whole system.
Oh, okay.
So, using that somehow, on the final day of this, when basically everybody else is killed, everybody's killed each other off, and there are 3 people left. This is Kawada, who is the guy who was the survivor from the last battle royale, Shuya, who seems like is kind of our main character who we're following, and Noriko, who's one of their friends, wake up on the shore of the island after a bunch of fights and everything. And Kawada, knowing that Kitano is going to be able to hear them through the microphones that are in their collars, makes it seem like he is killing Shuya and Noriko.
Oh, okay.
So then Kitana, having heard this, shuts down the system because now it's done. There's only one person living and we're good to go. Now remember, William, Kawada is long gaming this whole thing for revenge. So he goes to Kitano as the victor, and it's revealed, and I have to totally admit to you, this is certainly a weak, the weakest spot in my research, because I don't totally understand what this means. I've not seen the movie. It turns out that actually Kawada hacked this whole system months ago before any of this really
that's
started.
Too complicated. Yeah.
So it was like, so it turns out the hackers from the movie aren't really
whatever.
I don't really understand, but it seemed like it was of consequence.
Yeah, sure.
So I want to mention it. And Shuya and Noriko pop out along with Kawada, confronting Kitano, and Shuya kills Kitano.
Oh, so they kill the teacher. They pretended that they all fought to the death, but really 3 of them survived and killed the big bad guy.
Yeah, he thought there was just one survivor, and it turned out that there were 3.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and there's I didn't even write it down, but there's some sort of like tragic element to it where like Kitano thought of Shuya as kind of his daughter, and he has a real daughter who's estranged, and he
it's
calls
too bad.
the estranged daughter or something, and Shuya kills him, and it all sounded sad, but I bet good and like affecting and everything.
Maybe, yeah. It seems overcomplicated. I never want to sympathize. They do this in the Saw movies. I never want to sympathize with the big villain.
I know. There's a lot, or not a ton, but it seems like there's like a decent amount of villain sympathizing in this. Like, there are kind of layers to the villainhood. So again, I didn't write it down, so I don't even know what I'm telling you. But like, there's a big bad guy, Kitano. There were 2 students who were basically the craziest of them, who it's like, oh my God, you don't want to run across these
Loose
because they are going ham in this thing.
Yeah.
And apparently there's almost kind of like a postscript where you find out that one of those students was like horrifically abused as a child or something.
Oh, great.
Yeah, exactly. By the way, I had seen the trailer for this before in life. Like, I'd been aware that this was like a movie people like a lot, and I had checked it out, and then I'd be like, oh, this isn't my deal.
Yeah.
Reading the synopsis, I was like, confirmed, this is just too much for me.
Yeah.
They kill the bad guy, and the trio leaves the island on a boat with Kawada dying of injury. So Kawada, the good guy, he dies of injuries that he sustained during this whole Mishigas, but he dies kind of happy because he feels like mission accomplished. He got to avenge his girlfriend, and also he got some sweet friends.
Sure.
So Shuya and Noriko go on the run as fugitives, and the end. Essentially.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's like a postscript that goes into more relationship-y stuff, but that's the end of like the story.
This battle royale.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a ton of controversy around this movie, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
Because it's about 15-year-olds like killing the hell out of each other. And it was released in Japan in 2000. And yeah, just a lot of like fervor around it and kind of back and forth around what to rate it and stuff like that. And then it wasn't released in the US until 2011, which I was surprised to hear. That wasn't part of like the thing around this movie that I was aware of. But it had test screenings here in America in the year 2000, but that was around the time of Columbine, the Columbine shootings, in case anybody, doesn't know. In 99 or 2000, there was a school shooting that at the time was like the most horrific school shooting in the history of America. And so it really threw a lot of, aside from everything else, but entertainment wise, it kind of like threw a wrench in a lot of things because the
lockdown on violence.
The climate was like not one where we want lots of like shocking violence, particularly having to do with guns and particularly having to do with kids, like teenagers and stuff like that.
Part of the reason why Scream 3 is so silly is they swung more toward comedy.
Yeah.
To survive the time.
Yeah, totally. Like it just wasn't the time.
Yeah.
So it was definitely interesting. It was interesting to read what it was actually about and everything. I totally get why it's like a cult classic.
Yeah.
It sounds super unique.
Yes. And the thing I always appreciated about it, I like these things. There's like this modern trend in some horror movies where it's like, Groundhog's Day, but horror. And not that Lord of the Flies is some comedy film, but like
Lord of the Flies is devastating.
But like Battle Royale is almost like a souped up, like on steroids, Lord of the Flies.
Yeah, it's like
Kids.
Lord of the Flies when you provide them with weapons.
Yes, and you foster a society that celebrates violence.
Yeah.
It's like it's an interesting story to see like what people are capable of.
Yeah, right.
You know, and shocking when those people are kids.
Yeah, totally.
But it's fascinating and again, super duper influential. Like across the board, but especially in this like relatively niche death game genre.
And in researching it, I did find what you said earlier. It does seem like a genre that's really popular in Japan. Like even if it's not, even like in reality shows, like it's not actual death, obviously. But like it's a structure that a lot of things follow.
It's so approachable. Like I think that some of the things that it excels at is like it's any sort of thing where it's like they say up front, like, here are the rules.
Yeah.
There's literally a character. There's a mechanism in this genre where somebody goes, here's what you can and can't do.
Right.
And then you get to watch characters poke and prod those rules to find loopholes. And like, it makes you feel like you're participating and being clever.
Yeah, because you kind of can't help but think like, well, what would I do here?
Yeah.
Or like, maybe they could do this.
It's loosely participatory because it's so much fun to watch people and go like, I would have done, don't do that. I would have done the other thing.
Yeah, totally.
Like it's very engrossing when it's well done.
Not this, but it's something like what you and I have been watching lately, the show Taskmaster.
Sure.
Which you and Allie hipped me to.
Yep.
It's giving comedians in Britain these like very mundane tasks to do, but kind of like creating a bunch of barriers around them that makes them really hard.
Yeah.
And part of why it's fun is because you're like puzzling out like, how could they do this? And in doing that, you're kind of thinking like, well, how would I do that? And yeah, it's very fun.
Yeah, it's an amazing show. It's all on YouTube. It's a British show. They tried to do it in America, but it only lasted one season.
Okay.
It's got Lisa Lampanelli and
I'd like to see who else. Just based
Freddie
on...
Highmore.
That's weird.
Very weird. The kid that played Norman Bates on Bates Motel.
Yeah, like the British version. It's a panel of comedians
and like game show hosts and stuff.
Yeah.
Ron Funches. Who fits perfectly.
Yes, I do. Yes,
he's
I do.
incredibly funny.
Yeah. I know that is.
Yeah, it's just like it's weird. And the host of it is Reggie Watts.
Oh, okay. Strange.
Which, I mean, Reggie Watts is cool, but I mean, not to get too in the weeds on Taskmaster, but the point is, part of the point is that the host of that show is judgmental and abrasive.
Yes. He's extremely cheeky.
If ever there was a place for like Jane Lynch, and I know she did host a million game shows, but she could be the American Taskmaster.
Totally, because they like say like crappy things to them and stuff, but it has that air of like, we all know what we're doing here and whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, you're totally right. Jane Lynch is like perfect for that.
But that's also why death games are fun. Like you can see any game show. Like you can imagine like a horror Taskmaster.
Yeah.
There's probably like 5 different ways to approach making a horror Taskmaster.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's just so... It's so approachable.
Yeah.
It's so understandable, the death game genre.
Yeah.
And so this is not quite an ending. It's more of a to be continued. Because from here, we're going to take a look at a few that actually do, I think, do they fit into my categorization? Next week, we're looking at the Hunger Games, which is a tournament.
I changed my mind about something.
Oh.
I'm going to throw things for a loop a little bit. I was going to leave this out. Something else that I researched because I realized this isn't a death game. This isn't a death game at all. It's just something that somebody in our chat said last week. I wrote down to cover, and then I completely just autopilot covered it, not thinking at all about whether this fits or not.
Oh.
This is the movie Jumanji.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Let me confirm something. We're covering death games, and you picked Jumanji? It's a game.
I didn't pick it. Somebody wrote it in the chat last week, and I was just writing down what I'm supposed to cover, and I just wrote down Jumanji.
Well, hold on. That still means you picked it.
Don't
blame our listeners.
It's true. You're absolutely right.
How dare you? Especially was somebody in our Discord? It was a paying patron?
No, it wasn't. It was during the live stream.
Oh, it was a live stream. Yeah. Okay, all right. I was like, some of our closest confidants?
No, it's one of our free friends.
You throw them under the bus?
No, you're absolutely right. I did choose it, but I remember last week being like, okay, I have to write down what I'm supposed to cover. I'm supposed to cover Battle Royale and Jumanji. And then I just did it. I didn't think anything of it. I just thought, these are my topics for the week.
How big are your notes on Jumanji?
That's so much. It's too long. Well, It's fine. We'll save it. But just everybody know out there. I just wrote the plot of Jumanji.
Did he watch it?
No.
Okay, thank God. If you didn't watch
Battle Royale,
but you did watch Jumanji.
No, I didn't watch Jumanji.
I would fire you? I don't know your password. It occurred to me I don't know what I'm doing.
I think you do, but it's fine. Go ahead.
All right, let's see. I don't really remember the first movie, it says here. In 1969, a kid named Alan hears the sound of drum beats coming from a construction site where he finds a buried board game called Jumanji, buried 100 years ago. And it just keeps going, man.
I wrote the plot of Jumanji.
Wow.
That's all. So just know that.
Wow. Okay.
I will never emotionally fulfill you. Know that.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
Jumanji, a dangling Chad to be, I guess.
You know what?
Someday.
I'll put it in an unused episode.
Yeah, pop it in the unused. We'll talk about Jumanji someday. It is weird. It doesn't belong here.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't at all.
Jumanji.
No. Do you, real quick, do you remember there's like a time travel element of Jumanji? They like fix the past to fix the future.
Do they?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. That's a cliffhanger.
I mean, that's neat. I guess. That's cool.
Robin Williams prevents Kirsten Dunst's parents from dying.
He does?
Yeah.
That was nice of him to do that.
Yeah. I know.
They don't do that in the new ones.
No. Kevin Hart doesn't do it.
He doesn't do shit.
No, neither does The Rock.
Well, anyway, the rest of this month we're not watching Jumanji or Jumanji Welcome to the Jungle or Jumanji 3. There was another one, right?
I don't know.
Okay. We're going to be next week looking at The Hunger Games,
Yep.
which I've classified as a tournament game.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to be watching Clue, which I've classified as the Machination type of game. And then we are going to conclude the month with Escape Room, which is also a machination. Should we, depending on how much you believe in my three pillars perspective, should we pick a third pillar movie?
I certainly believe in it wholeheartedly. I don't have the kind of spirit that needs to hit each of them.
Okay, fair enough.
So that's up to you.
Let's hear from the listeners. How do you feel about my categorization of the death game genre?
Yeah.
And do you think that since we have 3 weeks to go in the month, should we hit one of each?
Yeah, shuffle the deck a little bit.
I say we risk losing Escape Room. We're going to stay with Hunger Games and Clue.
Yes.
I think they're both incredibly popular. I think let's risk
fun to talk about.
losing Escape Room.
Yeah, I think that's...
But I don't even know what we would put in. Will we put in Predator?
What were some of the other movies that you said you felt like were tournament?
The Most Dangerous Game and Ready or Not. I'm sure there are others.
Oh,
the entire point was just this asynchronous one person against many.
Right.
That was really the whole thing. Or the asynchronous one person against way too powerful other person.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I was really pulling for Ready or Not during the formation of our layout. So
I know
I'm
you were.
into that.
You're into that? All right. I want to hear from other people.
Yeah, totally.
Let us know what you think. Hit us up at GTTUpod. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed.
Yes,
and
definitely.
Now that we know what death games are, we're just going to look at some popular death games and talk about them starting next week again.
Yeah.
With The Hunger Games.
That's right.
Which I think is a pretty meaty topic.
Yeah, I know we bandied about privately, like whether it was like horror-y enough, but like...
I think it just fits the...
Yeah, I do too.
And it's tonally... It's still the stark life or death stakes, even if it does get silly. I would even argue that some of the sci-fi-y stuff almost dabbles into just like sci-fi horror.
Yeah, I know.
There's some crazy stuff in Hunger Games.
Yeah, I know. I think so too.
So that's what we're doing next week, everybody. So if you want to watch the movie, watch the movie. If you want to read the book, read the book.
Yeah.
We're going to spoil the whole shebang,
yes,
I think, by and large. So just brace yourselves. But yeah, welcome to Gametober, everybody.
Happy to have you.
Yes.
With this, we really put a stake in the heart of Cagetober.
Cagetober is never going to happen again. No. Although
I will certainly watch another Nicolas Cage movie for the show at some point.
Just for the hell of it, I'll never see one for the rest of my life.
Well,
I do know that Mandy, Color Out of Space. I do know that there are some Nicolas Cage horror movies that are supposed to be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But we're never going to do that again. Yeah. Cagetober, just
took it out of us.
Rest in power.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for hanging out with us at Chillin' Kristen.
Yep.
At The Myth Traveler, at GTTUpod, patreon.com/GTTUpod. In fact, gttupod.com/links
May as well.
to everything.
Yep.
Every kind of link you can imagine. If you love links, we've got so many. In terms of link, we've got it all.
In terms of link and in terms of site, so
It's
many.
there.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you next week, everybody, for more death games. But until that time comes, we must travel.
Back to the netherworld go we. To the arena!
To the arena! Oh, I'm dead. So let me tell you real quick the gross thing.
Oh, right. Wait, wasn't this something that I didn't want to hear, and so you were telling it at the end so I didn't have to hear it? Or something?
I thought we were sparing the listeners so they don't have to hear it if they don't want to.
Okay.
Here's something gross from Battle Royale.
Okay. It's just gross? Is it emotionally upsetting?
No.
Oh, then go ahead.
It's just very disturbing.
Okay.
I find it disturbing, at least.
All right. We'll see how I feel.
So there's a character, I don't know her name. I'm just remembering from watching the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And she's hunting people, right? And she goes into a house and she just starts being like, I know you're hiding in here. Like, I guess the people who are hiding, they like hoped that other bodies might be a decoy. Like, oh, this house already has dead people. Everyone else moved on, whatever.
Yeah.
But this girl is stalking into the house and she's so sadistic and sinister. She's like, I know you're in here. I know that the girl on the ground isn't the only person here. She's dead. There's other people here hiding somewhere. Do you want to know how I know? And it's so gross. I was like, on the one hand, it's like so shocking as a revelation, and on the other hand, I was just like, oh my God. She, the stalker girl, says that she found a tampon in the toilet. And so she checked the dead girl. She wasn't on her period.
Oh.
So somebody else is hiding here.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my God. I was like, oh my God.
That is a lot.
Like, if the point in the movie was like, look at to what extremes these people have been pushed.
Right,
I don't know, but
like
it was just like,
depths and like base.
yeah.
Like just I don't know, just like instinct, like just to see a tampon and then to gather from that, like, okay, I can extrapolate as whatever. Yeah. Like,
and then just the vague, I checked the dead girl.
Yeah, I
like,
know.
oh my God.
yeah.
So that really,
Yowee.
that stuck in the old memory.
Yeah, I could see that.
I got lodged in there.
Yikes.
Now I shared it with all of you, and thus I am unburdened.
Well, I'm okay. That was fine.
That was fine with you?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think
You're sick.
I don't think it's good, but I'm glad it's not like, oh, my dead friend, whatever.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Not one relationship
Yeah.
at all.
That's great.
It's great.
Yeah, you've been spared except for that one thing.
I remember situations
Yeah. You remember situationships?
and situationships
Yeah.
and things that made me sick to my stomach.
It's screwed up.
Strange.
That definitely has to be one of the two girls who I read about.
Yeah, they're crazy.
Yeah.
That's something I like of these things where there's like, sometimes there's the person who's like, I feel I've become,
I know.
I feel more myself than I have ever been.
No, it said like one girl was like a friendless girl at school and the other one was a psychopath. And I was like, wow. They really came into their own, I guess, in the Battle Royale.
Yeah. Movie don't create psycho.
Psycho create movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.